My guests today are Sam and David Cutler-Cruz, who are an award-winning writing, directing, and producing team based in New York City and LA. Now, as brothers, they grew up making films together. Now, their first short film, Flounder, premiered at the Clermont-Ferrand International Competition in 2022, their second, A LIEN, at Seattle International Film Festival, and their third short, Trapped, premiered at South by Southwest in 2024 Narrative Shorts Competition, where it won the Special Jury Prize. Now, their work together has been shown at many of their prestigious film festivals from around the world, and their work has premiered online with Vimeo staff picks, Short of the Week, Director's Notes, and Director's Library features. They are here today to discuss their Oscar-nominated short film, A LIEN. So let's welcome Sam and David Cutler-Cruz to the show. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Wow, what an incredible film you have brought forth. Very much talked about, but my eyes were absolutely opened to a situation I did not even knew existed. So, A LIEN is a short film that brings up, again, a situation that millions of people have no clue what is happening with those seeking a green card and going through the proper legal channels to work and live in America. How did you learn of this situation between ICE and the immigration offices?
Yeah, we learned about the process in 2018, and it just immediately struck both Sam and I as feeling like something we had to engage with. It felt so crazy that this immigration process was happening here in the U.S. and we didn't know it existed, and it felt like we needed to talk about it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that drew us to this specific process, was there's a sort of a strange kind of banal cruelty to it that I think the twisting of the rules, the paperwork, people coming trying to do the right thing and still being sort of punished for it, that seemed like it spoke to not just this particular process, but also was emblematic of the larger immigration system that we have in the US in general.
Yeah, when I saw your film, and as I was watching it and really being mindful of what was going on, I was like, this is completely Gestapo like. Because when I'm looking at an immigration office and everybody is sitting there, they've scheduled an appointment, they didn't show up unannounced. It should be a place that is like an embassy. Once you're there, you should be untouchable because you're there because you're wanting to do or go through the process legally. So
Yeah.
that whole area should be a complete safe zone. And what have we been hearing for the last few years? Go through the legal process. And to watch this film, it was heartbreaking to see people being treated like a criminal when they are doing what the government has asked them to do.
Yeah. I mean,
Absolutely,
oh, go
absolutely.
ahead.
It's just such a catch-22.
Yeah, and I think one of the things about it for us, uh, that it's easy to look at the immigration as a viewer to hear about immigration, the numbers, the statistics. There's a certain kind of like deluge of that we're overwhelmed with. But I think we easily forget that it's really about families. It's about people trying to do the right thing. Most of the people who are here who are immigrants, are here trying to live their lives and can go to the grocery store and have a birthday party with their kids. It's that they're really kind of like family oriented, people trying to just do their best that I think is easy to forget about.
Oh, very much so. I mean, I have a friend of mine, I'm not going to mention his name, but he and his family have been going through the legal process and they're in Canada so they can come to America. They kind of got caught outside the loop during the pandemic, which created a very bad situation that if you were in Canada and trying to get into the US, it's literally impossible. So
Yeah.
they're going through the legal process, and it's just literally crazy on the amount of paperwork, the amount of delays, one lawyer talking to another lawyer. I mean, it's never ending. But in your film, you have one of the main characters, Oscar Gomez. He had a legal passport. He wasn't climbing through the fence at the border. And I was like sitting like, come on, this isn't fair. I mean, it's almost like you want to shout at the screen and you want to stop the lunacy, but you can't. And the way you brought this story to life, I mean, it's one of the best films I've seen in this past film season.
Well, thank you. I think, one of the things that, back to an earlier point you were saying, I think one of the things that we were trying to highlight with this film, is I think there is also, part of the heartbreak of the immigration system is not so much in the dramatic moments of, the flash and the noise, but it really is more in the slow creep, of uncertainty, of delay, of just a mountain of paperwork. It's really death by a thousand paper cuts in a certain way, and I think that's the true kind of that's the true heartbreak here. And I think that's part we tried to sort of bring that in some ways into the film. The complexity and the uncertainty that I think many people face, and I feel like it really resonates.
Well, it was the opening scene. The family's in the car. They're trying to get to the immigration office on time. They have an appointment. You can feel the nervousness. You can feel that they have gone through this long waiting process. But now you're going to be sitting down face to face with an immigration official, and your heart's racing, you're nervous, you're hoping that you answer the questions correctly so you can move to the next step. And it's almost like a game in a way, but it's playing on a person's emotions because everybody wants to have that feeling of that, hey, I'm doing the right thing. I'm in a safe space. And, we all know that there are illegal immigrants that enter this country. And if they get injured, they're scared to death to go to the hospital and afraid that someone's going to show up and, and take them away, even though they have a broken arm. I mean, because they have no peace. And I think the system probably needs to change to allow those, like you said, just, families that are here to hopefully have a better life. And but you bring your film forward, that's really kind of scary. And and I have to say, I loved the title of this film because it plays two ways. I even looked up the definition of a lien just so I could see, okay, how would this relate to the film? And the only thing I could come across is that if a lien is holding onto one's property, in this case, when they entered the immigration office, they took their passports first. And I thought, oh my goodness. And so, how did you come up with that title, by the way?
Yeah, well, just one thing that I think you were commenting on before, is just I think one of our intentions in the piece was really for the viewer to be able to get in the shoes of someone going through this process, whether or not you've ever been through this process before, to be able to understand this is what it feels like to be going through this process, and how do we bring that to you, the viewer, and to anyone who watches this, no matter where you stand, and where your views are, you can understand the nervousness and the impact, of going through this process. And I think in many ways the title was trying to reflect much of that, where it was trying to reflect this interesting dichotomy, where we're both, in a system that is so paperwork based, that's so about property, that's about ownership, that's about value in a kind of non-human way, and yet also, of course, we're playing with the play on words with alien, and that the language around people and being at home versus being away versus being aliens. And I think that dichotomy is so foundational to what the film is about, and we felt like really reflective of the title as well.
Yeah, so I love the play on words. It just makes the film that much stronger, especially after one sees it. And as I was watching this film and watching the storyline unfold, I paid very close attention as to what was said, especially in the meeting between Oscar and the immigration uh, officer, I guess is what you would call them. So Oscar, being the lead male character in the film, he says he moved out of El Salvador in 1994. So I assume that he had been in America for at least almost 30 years. His character shows perfectly, and I hope people notice this. His character shows that he has assimilated into the American life and he still had a legal passport. And even when the immigration officer asked, why did you wait so long? That's a question that could have a million answers from a million different people. But I don't think it should be a strike against anyone, regardless how long they may have waited to finally go through the process.
Yeah, and I think one of the sort of tragedies of immigration here is you have a lot of people who came to the country when they were super young and who have overstayed their visa, their travel, their tourist visa, or whatever, or sort of no longer allowed to be here in the technical sense, even though their entire life is here, home for him, for Oscar as Queens. It's not El Salvador, and so whenever he chose to sort of go through the process, for whatever sets of reasons, with it now with his wife or whatever anybody decides to kind of do with their personal life, this idea that somehow there is a because he's maybe overstayed what is sort of the official amount of time he was supposed to be here, there is some kind of debt to be paid to the country in some way that you can be sort of taken and removed. That's also where the idea of the lien comes from. That even though you've been here your whole life, there's something hanging over your head, and that idea of uncertainty and the sort of Damocles hanging over you. I think is something that Oscar really experiences, throughout the film.
I love that. To me, that's the essence of the film.
And that's the essence of the title.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess it was a good omen that you named the lead character Oscar.
That's, you're the first person. I've never thought about that. That's the first time anyone's mentioned that ever to us.
Oh,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? I mean,
No
when I
way.
heard his name, I was like,
I'm
wow.
not. We've never thought about that ever. That's crazy. What?
Maybe from now on, that when you do a short film, maybe you just need to have a character named Oscar, and maybe it just kind of
I've
carries through the
never heard.
process.
Oh my god,
Right.
that's wild.
Well, I'm glad I'm the first, and
That's
not and not
crazy.
only that, not only I guess that I'm the first one to bring that up. You're the last Oscar nominated interview before the Oscars, so who knows? We'll see what happens. But on
That's
this
funny.
film, you have Sofia Gomez. Now, I assume that she is an American citizen
Yeah.
and their daughter is also an American citizen.
Yeah.
I thought it was odd that being at the immigration office that she would have to hand over her passport as well. And I mean, I'm not versed in immigration law, but I just kind of found that odd.
Yeah. I mean, I think for us, and like we're not immigration lawyers, so we like obviously there's so many complications in this process. Um, but going through this process, the government wants to understand who you are. If you're getting a green card, if you're getting married to someone who's a citizen, right? I mean, the government and immigration wants to understand, who everyone involved is, and they want identification for everyone.
Yeah, and I think we've definitely this film is obviously it's a fictional film, but it's based on real events. And there have been lots of examples over the last whatever many years of American citizens being swept up in ICE raids, and being held for significant amounts of time, detained in various ways because they were with somebody who was, whatever, getting ICE was targeting or whatever, and because of court cases and delays and lawyers, they in the end, get kind of swept up in that as well. So that piece of it is also pulled, from real accounts that have happened over the last 10 years.
Yeah, I do like the chaotic scene um, when the whole thing about immigration, that the officers came in, they're calling out people's names, which I was trying to figure out, why did they choose those people's names to call out? But I also like the immigration officer that showed that moment of compassion to Sophia, because she was trying to convince him their daughter is an American citizen. And that was a little bit of a bright light there in this film, because I think that we needed to have that moment of grace, that moment of compassion,
Yeah.
and there it was.
Well, I think one of our intentions in general, think working with the actors in the film, is to really try to see everyone in their job fairly. I think we were really looking at every person in the immigration process as, hey, this is a person working a job. They go home and they have a family too. You know, uh, trying to really honestly portray, like, the ICE officers are trying to, even, in their detaining people, they're trying to be, protective of their own bodies. They don't want to have to tackle folks if they don't need to. Like, how do we really look at everyone through an honest lens, which then we think talks more about the system, because everyone's just a person trying to do their job.
Yeah, each character brings their own motivation to their thing, and each motivation needs to be valid and understandable by the viewer in some ways. And it's those kind of like crossings of motivations, that can kind of uh, make shed light on how the system fails us more than the people per se.
Yeah, because the thing that bothered me, and of course, this film should bother people, uh, when they were calling out the names over the loudspeaker, trying to find, whoever they were looking for, like Oscar. Uh,
Yeah.
I was surprised that when they finally caught up to Oscar, they never explained themselves. And I thought that was an injustice right there. You're in the immigration office, you're there because you want to go through the legal process. And then you have an outside source comes in to say that the legal process, and in a way, what they did was saying the legal process doesn't matter. And
Yeah, I
that
think
was completely unfair.
what you have here, I think, are you have two organizations, ICE and USCIS, are not the same thing. The lady, one of the USCIS officers says that to Sophie. Well, we're not the same thing, and then this this process came about because these two departments don't talk to each other as much as they should, and there is obviously ICE is working towards one directive and USCIS is working a different directive, and those things, that sort of confluence of rivers is what creates this particular issue. But in general, across the board, the idea that we as a country need to think about what a holistic, humanistic, and sort of humane process can be, where all parts of the process are talking, so that people, families can stay together, and people who are trying their hardest to do the right thing, play by the rules, and go through the system as they should, can be honored, to be in the country as truly we are. If you look back at anybody's family history, one generation, practically most people in this country are one generation away from immigration in some way, I think.
They are. I mean, my family came from the UK, migrated to Canada, and then crossed into New England, and then here we are. Uh,
Our family's from Russia. Everyone has some story, right? Really, it's
they do, but you bring something up, and this is something that America needs to improve on. There's far too many departments doing their own thing and they don't work together. And you showed this in this film. You have two departments literally not working in unison. They're working against one another, and the one that is hurt are the people trying to go through the legal process. I just recently talked to an international securities expert, counterterrorism, and we had a short discussion that if you want to compare America and to compare it to the way Israel does things, in America, as an example, you have the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, and the military, and they all work on different planes. They don't work together. They don't really like working together. And if they have to, they complain about it. So nothing gets done. In Israel, the military answers to the government. When whatever is said, it gets done. Here in America, you have to go through multiple channels, and you show that in this film, which makes it that much more frustrating. But your film does something that I absolutely love. You bring, you cause, I should say, I don't care what side of the aisle someone is on, they see this film and everybody agrees the same way. This is wrong.
I
And
think
and that's the beauty of this film. You're actually bringing all of us together and realize we got to do better.
I think that's so our hope, is to really look at the humanity around this space. It doesn't matter what you think or what side of the aisle you're on in, around those pieces, but we're talking about people. Immigration's about people. It's about families. It's about cooking dinner with your partner and taking your kid to school. That's what it's really about. And I think that was always our intention to really focus in on that and to say, hey, like let's have a system that honors people to who want to be U.S. citizens, and how do we have a system to support those folks in a humane way?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think one of the things about filmmaking that really is makes it such a unique medium is allows you to kind of it allows films allow you the opportunity to sort of be in somebody else's shoes, to really put the viewer into the perspective of someone that they wouldn't necessarily get to understand so intimately. And no matter what your background is or what your feeling is, if you can resonate with the characters and the choices that they're making make sense to you the viewer, you can really like open people's minds up and show them parts of the world and people that they've never seen and understood. And perhaps there's a way to I think this film can spark a conversation, can spark dialogue about the need to reform our immigration system, and think about how we do that in a way that is humane and honors people's families and their desires to do the right thing.
Indeed. And here's where I want to talk about the filmmaking process of this film, because this is what brings this story to life. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, this film is Oscar nominated. Your cinematographer was Andrea Gavazzi. And
Yes.
the camera work, the sound mixing, the coloring were absolutely incredible. When you wrote the script, how did you envision what you wanted on film to Andrea or
Yeah,
Andrea?
I think it's Andre. No, it's Andrea Gavazzi is absolutely incredible, a true master cinematographer, someone we absolutely love. Um, I think we were very intentional. We spent a long time working with Andrea in the script phase to, get on the same page to make sure we were aligned. But I think the vision from the script to the screen is quite consistent in that way. And I think, I remember, um, we had written some early kind of ideas about how the camera should be, and I just read them recently. We were using them for some PR thing, and I was surprised at how accurate they were to what ended up getting filmed. And it's exciting to kind of see the intention finally kind of meet the reality. And I think Andrea really was an incredible sort of like medium, if you will, or whatever, a midwife to make that happen. We're trying really hard to put you in these characters' heads, and as the film gets more kind of claustrophobic and their focus gets more and more narrow and the walls are closing in around them, we and Andrea, the lenses get longer, the camera gets closer, it gets shakier and more intense. We kind of really focus your vision, the viewer, in on these characters and what they're going through. And I think you can kind of feel that claustrophobia grow, and that sort of uncertainty and dread grow in the cinematography across the board. And the same is true for the sound design and the color. Again, we both, as we look at this, the arc of the movie kind of moving from the outside of the world, kind of deep down into the underground bowels of this building. We kind of call it, the with each other, me and David, the taupe labyrinth. We've watched both the saturation of the color drain out as we go deeper and deeper, and then kind of resume as we come back up to life. And same for the sound design. The organic sounds begin to vanish as we kind of go deeper and deeper. We're only in a world of fluorescent lights humming and electronic beeps and that sort of like deep space. And so trying to bring the arc of the story both in sound and in color throughout the process was something we really pushed for, and I think was successful in its execution.
Oh, it was. And I noticed the coloring. When they went down, when Oscar was with his daughter,
Yeah,
and when they were in that hallway, you could see the lack of color
yeah,
compared to what was above. And then when Sophia and them were outside, it was even
yeah,
more so.
yeah.
I love the fact I love filmmakers who pay so close attention to detail like both of you did, because every little thing matters to a story. Some filmmakers, maybe they're just young and they don't
No, we're
understand the
young.
use of coloring, but both of you completely incorporate it. And this is what I love about filmmaking. You have got to incorporate color to your film, because a lot of times that color is telling a story and enhancing the story. And yours did. You captured the tension, the nervousness, the confusion. I mean, even the fear, because the camera work was so amazing. And I'm going to take a guess. Was the whole film done handheld?
Yes, it was. It was all on the shoulder of Andrea Gavazzi's beautiful camera shoulder. Just literally him sprinting around these hallways after the characters. And I think one of the ways in which we tried to kind of bring some reality to the filmmaking. We did a lot of the scenes sort of like live in a certain way, where we would, we obviously had a very intentional shot list, but what would end up happening is we'd kind of like get the scene going, and then Andre would kind of come in with the camera like a documentary filmmaker, and he'd pick off some of the shots from the shot list, and then we'd go through, we'd cut after the scene was over, we'd go back, look through the shot list, okay, we cross off these 4 shots that we know you got, then we make some adjustments, do it again. And so we kind of captured a documentary feel with that, while also bringing in those really intentional narrative camera shots and filmmaking techniques to really story tell in the way that we like to do it.
Well,
Yeah, and
go ahead.
and we were just, I think, so interested in the concept of like, are how do we make this so that it doesn't feel like you, the viewer, are an observer? How do we make it feel like you, the viewer, are going through the process with them? You are part of the family. You are there in the space, instead of like, oh, I'm just standing 10 feet away watching this thing happen, which feels like it lets all that kind of energy out.
Dissipate, yeah.
Yeah, because the moment the film starts, I already felt the nervousness of don't be late. This is, you have a serious appointment, don't be late. So you're already feeling the same emotions as the characters. They get into the immigration office. She hands over the passports. There's that nervousness. There's that feeling of uncertainty. They're just praying to get through it's almost like the audition process. If
Yeah.
I can just get through it, if I can just say the right thing, I say it the right way, everything's going to be okay. They're going to stamp the application as approved and we move on. And the audience feels every second of that journey. Then when they call out Oscar's name, we're feeling that rush. Like, I mean, I'm like, Oscar, get out of that building. I mean, we're all cheering Oscar on, go, 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 get out of there.
Yeah.
And, but you left no stone unturned when it comes to capturing the emotion and forcing the audience into that emotion, because I love the whole sense of the chaos. It worked to perfection.
Yeah. Intentional chaos.
Yeah, our controlled chaos is what they call it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Controlled chaos. Yeah, no, I think especially with the uncertainty, you like any good horror film, you're trying to get the audience on edge early, so they're wondering what's going to happen, and it's that that place as an audience member of not knowing, what's going to happen, that can really, I think, allow you, the director, to really move the story in some interesting ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we really, we've thought about this film as a documents horror film. It
Yeah,
really is, like the horror is in the documents and in the bureaucracy and in the, in all of those pieces. And I think, one thing that feels really relevant in this film and relevant more broadly is just the uncertainty, and I think that that's something that we really tried to play to, which is the uncertainty of, you know, after this process, am I going to be able to go home and, continue living the life, that I'm hoping to live with my family? Am I, where's the uncertainty of what my future holds and trying to
yeah.
give life
And
back?
if you're here out of it, if you're here without overstaying your visa, you can't go out of the country. You can't go on vacation. You can't get back in. And so it's like you're sort of trapped in this. You're sort of trapped strangely here in a place that you can't, that you don't belong in, or whatever, or that doesn't think you belong there.
Well, yeah, and it happened by accident for many people when the pandemic hit. Some of them got caught in countries in which they couldn't leave to get back home, lost
Yeah,
their home where they were originally living, and it was a nightmare until it was finally over.
yeah,
Uh, and the list goes on and on and on. But many of the shots in this film, because I watched this multiple times, because I'm looking,
yeah.
and you got to look fast in this film, because this film doesn't slow down unless
No.
until Oscar is sitting in that chair in that
Yeah,
quiet room. That's the only time you kind of get a break. But many of the shots in this film
yeah.
are extreme close-ups, which doesn't allow the audience to rest. But they're there for us, like you said, to experience every step of what that couple is going through.
Yeah, and those extreme close-ups, I think, in general, if you look at any good horror film, what's outside the frame is more terrifying than what's in the frame, and so that helps, I think, build that uncertainty for the viewer. The tighter the shot, the more controlled your vision is of a scenario by the directors, or by the camera. The more you can be nervous about what's happening outside. I think we try and play with that in some sort of way as well, with the Oscar and Sophie FaceTime phone call, where her vision of this situation, her view of it, is not in her control. All she can do is watch on her phone as it unfolds in front of her, and that lack of control, I think, both for the viewer and for the character, is quite scary, and I think helps kind of get you into that headspace.
Well, yeah, and when you incorporated the FaceTime part of this film,
Yeah,
I love the way you changed the dynamic. You took us away from Oscar
yeah,
into what Sophia was experiencing, and it was like watching a film within a film, and you changed the dynamic and took the audience from one character to the next, even though they were
yeah,
both in the same frame. It
yeah.
was just brilliant.
Yeah, we spent a long time with our editor on that scene, basically crossfading, if you will, perspectives from Oscar's. So it starts fully in Oscar's perspective, and slowly it fades fully into Sophie's perspective, until that final shot that you're seeing of her looking at the phone and the camera is just on the ceiling and all you hear is the audio,
Yeah,
and that
and
getting
that
that right
shot,
was
yeah,
complicated.
yeah. So we're thinking, okay, Oscar's been forced to the ground. That we see the look up, and then you see that the slight blurred, like the present and the future is now blurred. Which way are we? Which way is this going to go?
Yeah,
And you you left no stone unturned in this
yeah.
film. Now
Again, what's out of frame is more terrifying than what's in frame.
that yeah,
The shot
and
of the ceiling is more terrifying than the shot of him. You
yeah,
know,
and I'm glad you did that because if it was reversed and the camera was showing Oscar, it would have not had the same impact.
doesn't work.
So
Yeah.
you were perfection on that one. Now the only relative piece in this film was when Oscar was sitting for the interview,
Yeah,
but not realizing that the chaos was going on outside the door. And
yeah,
then I thought it was interesting because, of course, Sophia is going to be calling him.
yeah,
But you know what was weird about that phone call? Because she texted and then she called. For me, as the audience, I'm not looking at Oscar. I'm wanting to know the response to the immigration officer. Is she going to look at him and roll her eyes? Is she just going to huff and puff like, oh, can anybody put their cell phone away or whatever?
yeah.
Or
Sure.
was it going to be a negative against him? Because some people, if they're sitting in for an interview, maybe if they were sitting there for a job interview and your cell phone goes off, what's the
Yeah,
other person on
exactly.
the other side of the desk going to be thinking? So I'm feeling or anticipating a feeling from the immigration officer.
Yeah, totally. And I think again, it's this idea where so much of good filmmaking is about information control to the viewer. And it's like we know omnipotently that that phone call has meaning, but we also understand in a kind of very visceral sense why in an interview you wouldn't want your phone going off. It's really awkward, especially in the biggest interview of your life potentially. And so we want to scream and shout at Oscar, through the TV, like, dude, pick up your phone. It's really, really important. And simultaneously, we know why he can't do it. And that kind of like rationale there, I think, is what creates good filmmaking. That tension between what the character can't do, and yet what the character should be doing. That space, that yank, that is where tension and filmmaking lives. I think good filmmaking.
Yeah. And I was kind of wondering, what if he did answer it and then realizes what is really going on? And then he says something to the immigration officer. I was kind of wondering, what would she have done if she knew? Would she shield him? You know, tell him just to stay right here, don't say a word, maybe be a protective force there. So, we get, and this is what I love about short films. It allows the audience to create their own stories in their mind as
Yeah,
what if that would have happened? Could they have done
yeah.
this or that? So that's what makes some short films incredible, and yours did that. If I saw, there's very few short films that I've seen in the last year, and I saw over 150 of them,
Wow.
and there's very few of them that get it right. You got it right.
Well, thank you. We
so,
appreciate it. Well,
so I have to ask, both of you have had the most incredible journey with this film. So, what has been the audience's reaction to it, both in America and abroad?
I think one of the things that has consistently struck us has been how many people come up and say, this film speaks to my experience going through the green card process, going through the immigration process. The number of folks who come up, really emotional, saying, you put something on the screen that showed what it felt like to go through this process. And we've just heard that again and again and again. And I think it's a really powerful thing, to be able to hopefully speak to that experience for so many people and to give voice for those people to what it felt like to be going through this process.
Yeah, and I've seen this in the past couple of years when it comes to Oscar nominated shorts. And it's always been amazement even to the filmmakers how you create this film, you get you make it all the way here, and then you find out that your film is literally projecting what's going on in the world today.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I think when you're an artist, when you're an artist and you're making something, you don't know quite what landscape it's going to land in. Especially with a film, you write it, and then you have to produce it, and then shoot it, edit it. There's a long time between even writing and when it kind of comes out into the world. And even for this film, it was in festivals. Before it was the Oscars, so it's even had another long length of time. And so it's obviously kind of depressing that it's still relevant, but it's kind of amazing in some ways that it's kind of meeting its moment right now in our national conversation. And I think we're you know we're pleased that people can resonate with it, and that it meets the kind of current zeitgeist that we're talking about, and can maybe be a place for discussion.
Yeah, but it certainly was, when we wrote it initially, our hope was that by the time, it came out, it would be,
Irrelevant.
possibly changed and that would be
Yeah,
irrelevant. It was
yeah,
certainly our dearest hope that it would be not in the conversation. But we're glad that it at least is able to now, as obviously immigration is a huge topic of our conversation, that it's able to be a conversation starter and to allow people to engage with the process in a different way.
But what I love about films like this one is that it has the power to create change in a positive way. You know, forcing two agencies to communicate to one another, and where we don't see this scenario play out in real life ever again. And like
and
I said,
forcing people who don't have to go through this process to go through it with our characters, I think
we
is really important. And it's important for them. We as the Americans get to pick how we want our country to be. We get to choose, and the only way we can choose is by experiencing. And this film is one way to help experience what it's like to be in these shoes. And I think as most Americans don't have to go through this process. You know, we need touchstones. We need ways to understand what it's like, so we can make the most informed choice as a said group of citizens to tell our leaders how we want the world to be, and how we want to kind of make the country.
yeah, because to me, it's not just making it to the immigration office. It's when you start the paperwork, you go online. Maybe you're downloading, the PDF files or whatever to fill out. I mean, and the moment you put your information in, to me, you should have a hedge of protection that, okay, you're in the system. They know you've downloaded this. They know that you've already shown the first step of wanting to go through this process legally, do everything you can to do what is correct, and blah, blah, blah. And it should start there, not waiting till you get to the immigration office and feel like, oh, good, I made it to the embassy, I'm safe now. Okay. And your film shows that that's not the case. So this film has a tremendous amount of power to create governmental change at the highest level for millions of people. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's our
have
hope.
you ever thought about the magnitude of this film and what it could do?
I think absolutely that our hope is that, the film can be used as a springboard to say, let's make some changes here. Let's make this process one that is, that's easily accessible for those who want to go through the legal process of becoming a US citizen.
I love it. Now, from the moment um, the Oscar nominations were announced, both of you will forever be, up to this point, to be introduced as Oscar nominated filmmakers. Now, There's only a few weeks to go. And of course, that the word nomination could be changed to winner. But how does that actually feel? And kind of walk me through what happened the day you were announced with the nomination.
Well, I think both of us, from the larger perspective, obviously it's incredibly, humbling to be honored at the Oscars. You know, I think David and I see it a bit like a marathon. You know what I mean? We kind of feel like we're at mile two, and we still have 24 miles left to run. There's a lot of road ahead of us, and people can cheer and clap and hand us water bottles, which is really wonderful. We like to run. That's what we like to do, and so this is just the beginning of a very long path for us, and one that we're super excited to be on.
So, is it already starting to open up doors?
It's certainly been a wonderful, a wonderful thing to be in conversation with folks about, for sure. And I think for us, that space of, saying like this is such a wonderful success and such a celebration, and also, like okay, let's get back to work. Let's keep writing on the next piece, and
Yeah,
doing what we love to do, which is, between the two of us, is tell stories. We've
yeah.
always loved that.
Well, was there a particular moment in the journey leading up to the nomination that with this film, A LIEN, that you're like, wow, we may be onto something?
Yeah, I think the short list was probably the first moment where it kind of hit us. We didn't really do any campaigning up to that point. We just sort of were like, okay, it's on the long list. Like whatever. We'll see what happens. And then it's really unlikely that it goes from the long list to the short list. There's a lot of amazing films, and so we were both very surprised that it made the short list. And that's kind of when we looked at each other and said, okay, wow, this actually maybe could make the nomination round. And the political wins are really like shaking the trees right now, and this film is speaking to people in this moment, and maybe it could have some impact here. So I think that's when we started realizing, okay, there's that this is something that's people are really resonating with, even more than what we've already heard. you know
Well, have you already started writing a possible acceptance speech? Or are you just going to wing
uh,
it?
we haven't done it. We're not there yet. We're still trying to figure out how to get the film out to the broadest swath of people at the moment, and maybe once the Oscar voting closes, we'll think about what it means to be up on stage. But it's truly exciting, and we're very we're very stoked that it's coming true.
Well, at least you can focus on getting the right tuxedo and walk the red carpet
Yeah,
and
exactly.
experience that as well. So it's going to be a crazy ride from this day forward.
Yeah, that's for sure. 100%.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I will say this: the Oscar-nominated short A LIEN is a film with a message. The story follows a couple and their daughter into the immigration office in New York City to legally obtain a green card. They have all their passports and everything is going to plan until ICE shows up to arrest immigrants who are literally going through the process again, legally. This film brings up an issue that is nothing short of being the Gestapo and removing the rights of people who want to be part of the American dream, again, by obeying and following the legal process. A LIEN will make you think and understand that we need to change the system. If your desire is to be part of America, there should not be fear attached to it. As a film, well, A LIEN does everything right. The fast paced camera work, the sound mixing, even the colorization bring the audience into the chaotic mess of the immigration process. Now, when you follow the characters Sophia and Oscar Gomez, you feel their nervousness, their tension, their fear, their confusion, and their grip on the American dream being tested by a legal system. Now, cinematographer Andrea Cavazzi, well, his stunning camera work is a thing of magic and captures the importance that this film was designed to convey. The American dream should be apple pie and ice cream, not handcuffs and a gotcha moment. A LIEN deserves its Oscar nomination, and in just under a month, we will see if it takes home the gold. Thank you, David and Sam, for sharing your incredible film with me today, and good luck at the Oscars.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
You're very welcome. And as for me, ladies and gentlemen, you're either going to see me at the movies or from the red carpet.